Another day, another video. Welcome to the YouTube page of a broke booktuber talking about the best books. Today's topic actually makes me very excited because it is about tropes, and specifically tropes concerning the fantasy genre. I asked over at Twitter, what are fantasy tropes you hate or love? A lot of you answered, and there were so many answers. I managed to find some of those tropes, and I will be discussing them in this video. And then towards the end of the video, I will be talking about mine. Let's dive into this.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Now let's talk about something that I really abhor in fantasy, especially in epic fantasy. Rebecca says when there is a character who is blind and their sight is restored by some magical force, or they have a superpower because they are blind, like super hearing. I hate both of those tropes, especially since I am blind myself. I wholeheartedly agree with Rebecca here because number one, I am going to agree with her, but also number two, I'm going to jump from what she said and jump onto the main thesis of her statement, which is magic that takes away flaws, magic that takes away, number two, tension from the story. Because when you write magic systems, or let's say you have, in generally speaking, you have spells and magic and so on and so forth, in your story, you have to make sure that your magic does not take away tension. This means several things have to always be true about your magic system, at least for me to respect it. Number one, your magic system should not be able to heal wounds. In no way should it be able to heal wounds. If a character goes into battle and the audience has an understanding in the back of their head that you can restore the wounds that the character suffers, immediately as an author, what ends up happening is that you sacrifice tension. Someone gets punched. It doesn't matter they lost few teeth, or their nose is now crooked, or their ear is just sort of messed up. No. We can just heal that. See, this is a problem. A magic system should not be able to heal. In video games, magic systems heal because it's a video game. In storytelling, you should never be able to be healed. This is one of the things I didn't like in the Stormlight Archive. This is something I will never love in any fantasy story, and especially in epic fantasy, because guess what? When you are writing epic fantasy, you are going to have a lot of battles. You are going to have a ton of pages where your characters are doing nothing but fight. Careful, because all of those pages combined, they collectively become a significant portion of your book, or several books. Therefore, it is important that you never sacrifice the tension in the battles by having, healing magic. Number two, your magic should never be able to bring people from the dead. This trope can be done well, but in my eyes, death should always stay a permanent factor. If your characters die, they die. They do not come back. I am being passionate about this. I don't like to rant a lot, but I do end up oftentimes just ranting. But I hate it and I abhor it to the depth of my being when a character comes back from the dead. You know the risks when you take that sword and you run into the battle. Do not come back from the dead. No one should be coming back from the dead. Simple as that. I abhor it when they come back from the dead. This can extend into so many other things. But I will leave it here because I think I got my point across. Your magic should not take away tension from the story. It should add tension to the story. And let's not forget that it can actually be insulting to people who have these disabilities to see that in a story, your disability gets cured by magic. Like, that is really, bad, because instead of exploring the disability, instead of making those who have these disabilities feel welcomed, what you're doing is you are curing them away with magical bullshit. So just think, it is bad story craft to have magic that heals wounds. But number two, it is also bad to have magic that, cures away illnesses that otherwise are real and experienced in our world. And so, yeah, think about it. Think about this stuff, just dropping in, by the way, to add this. The audio quality is probably much better. So our first comment today comes from Sarah, and probably should be writing. Yeah, I should be writing as well. Anyway, she says, I really don't like in fantasy how there almost always seems to be royalty involved. Why can't we see as many fantasy novels without an aristocratic society? Either our MC is a member of the royal family or the love interest is. She adds, there's too much of the pseudo-medieval Europe used in fantasy. I would love to see more fantasy universes that feature achievements in technology. Now, I really love this comment so much because of a specific thing I've noticed, which I never expected, which really, I'm not an American or I'm not familiar with Western culture. But yes, it is true that a lot of, fantasy takes influences from medieval Europe. I have also naturally found myself taking, influences from Arabia, from East Africa, as well as Southeast Asia, and as well as Persia. So I'm not going to blame Westerners for having too many influences from their own cultures in the past. But I will say it is really stagnant because I do feel like there's too much, way too much influence from medieval Europe. When also, this is the awful bit that concerns me because it is just medieval Europe. Europe has had so many interesting periods. If you go back to classical antiquity, especially when the Western Roman Empire was falling, you end up with an entirely different aesthetic, right? If you go back to the time Romans existed, especially the Western Roman Empire was in control, you end up with a slightly different aesthetic. Not drastically different from the fall of the Western Roman Empire, but you see the point. There has been so much from Europe, and there has been so much in the history of Europe that I am disappointed. A lot of the books, a lot of fantasy books that I see who take, an inspiration from Europe end up often always sticking to medieval Europe. So yeah, I would say to a lot of the Western authors who write fantasy, cut it off. Stop with the medieval stuff. Your own European history has so much. Why it is simply stagnant. It surprises me because I take pride in the fact that, East Africa has had so much history, and my fantasy worlds are peppered. They are loaded with so many different governance systems that have existed throughout the entirety of the history of East Africa. You'll end up going 2,000 years, and then you'll end up going to 1,500 years, 1,800 years, some 80 years ago. Even today, we have a republic. I have a republic in my current story. You end up with all of these things. By the way, republic is not East African specific, but you get the point. We have, I am taking from the entirety of my history. I would say that a lot of the people who take from medieval Europe, come on, dude, Europe is so beautiful and it's so complex. You should take more from Europe. You should go back. You should go really back. I would love that fantasy worlds stop being just medieval Europe. Aside from that, I agree with Sarah on everything else. Our next comment comes from Jack Shannon, and he says, I love grizzled protagonists, grim swordsmen, victory from the jaws of defeat. Hate the chosen one trope, fluffy, everything is okay, and nothing bad happens to the protagonist stories. I want to focus on the chosen one bit here, because that is the one I have, the most gripe with. I abhor, no. I do not think I can properly describe how much I hate the chosen one. Especially the modern depiction of chosen one. The protagonist in Wizard's First Rule, by the way, don't worry, I will not spoil much. I took an oath some days ago that I'm gonna stop being a spoilering asshole because someone sent me an email saying, I unsubscribed, you spoiled too much. So I'm not gonna spoil anything. But I will give a simple, quick example, which is, the protagonist in the story starts out as a nobody, as a little boy who's just, basically just a nobody. He has this about him, right? He is the chosen one, number one, and number two, he is he has a secret heritage. And then number 3, he is gonna get the sword and he's gonna be running around with it. Number 4, all the women seem to be throwing themselves at him after a little bit of, into the story. I hate this. I hate this, which is the modern depiction of the Chosen One. I love what the Chosen One used to be back in the days of J.R. Tolkien, in the sense that, for instance, if you take Frodo is a Chosen One. In other words, what makes a Chosen One at the lowest, barest minimum a Chosen One is that there is a higher power, and the higher power chooses them. That's why they're the Chosen One. And so this particular individual, that description applies to Frodo. However, I abhor the fact that over the many decades we've been writing fantasy, the Chosen One, which was just simply that, evolved into the special one. This is why I hate the Chosen One trope today, because it is literally not the Chosen One, it is the special one. The Chosen One can be described as Frodo, and if you really read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you will end up noticing that Frodo is not anyone who is special. He's just the everyman. He is someone who's trying to do their best in order to struggle, in order to survive, in order to sort of move on and to deliver the task and to do as much good as he can. He is not a very complex protagonist, but he doesn't have to be. And moreover, he is also not the special one. A lot of the times with modern Chosen Ones, what you end up seeing is that the Chosen One is perfectly moral, number 1. Number 2, the Chosen One is very strong. Number 3, the Chosen One is, very handsome. Number 4, the Chosen One is this, the Chosen One is that. You get the point. Basically, they become so idealized that you cannot, in no way, as an author, characterize them. This actually happened to J.K. Rowling because she characterized Harry Potter for so long as the special one. And what ended up happening in book 5 is that finally she decided that she was going to give Harry Potter some complexity. And what ended up happening is that a ton of the audience who read the first 4 books just ended up hating Harry Potter in the 5th book because they thought he was being mischaracterized. But no, he was really not being mischaracterized. He was having basic emotions. The Chosen One is not supposed to have a struggle. He's not supposed to scream. He's supposed to be, the perfect one. And so this I hate. I love it when the Chosen One is someone who's simply chosen to deliver a task. That's it. That's really it. And also, fun fact, Frodo is chosen because he is very weak. So it even I think J.R. Tolkien was subverting something that had not been invented yet. At least something that had not bled into the mainstream. At the time the Chosen One existed thousands of years. It's just that he was inverting it before it became mainstream, which is something special. So I hate it when there's a Chosen One and that Chosen One is a special one. I love the Chosen One trope when the character is not sacrificed and the character is not made perfect and the character is not given so much power that the tension in the story is destroyed. Simple. That is literally the thesis of what I have been rambling about. We will be moving to the next comment, which is, it comes from Luke, and he says, I hate reading pages about clothes and buildings. Wheel of Time would be 3 books shorter if Robert Jordan spent less time describing dresses. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. I agree with you so much. I cannot even believe it. Because the Wheel of Time book series, I remember last summer, I was in the 8th chapter of the first book when I simply just stopped, I got up, and I walked away. I didn't finish it. I could no longer take the excessive amount Robert Jordan dedicates to describing the irrelevant things that will never add to the story. You can describe them once. You can describe them maybe twice. But when it's the 5th time that you are describing curtains and clothes of the same characters, you have run into a problem, because what you are doing is you are simply describing things for the sake of describing things. One thing is true about the Wheel of Time, which is because Robert Jordan describes things so much, what ends up happening is that his descriptions are very beautiful because he has practiced a lot. That putting that aside, putting the fact that his descriptions in my eyes are beautiful, I am bothered by the fact that so many authors spend a lot of time in fantasy describing irrelevant things about the world. But number two, I will jump from Luke's point onto another point, which is concerning info dumps, because I do not like it when an author spends so many pages dumping information onto the book, primarily because they themselves do not know any other or any better way of getting the information across. This is awful because it means expositing information properly is a skill that an author and a writer has to practice. Authors who dump information into the book, slowing down the story, sacrificing the pacing, and sacrificing the tension, end up being authors who have not put enough hours to practice how to properly exposit information. Therefore, you're a bad author. You're a bad writer if you have 50, 40, 70, like that is too much. I'm yet to see 70 pages of straight info dumps. But if you have 2 pages of info dumps, that is it. You have exceeded the maximum limit I will ever give you. The maximum limit I will ever give you is 2 pages. I'm very strict about info dumps and how to do them properly because it is a skill that has to be acquired. I understand it is very difficult. I have struggled with this as a writer. I'm not a published author, but at least I am acknowledging that it is my fault. At least that I am trying to learn, I'm trying to improve, and I think if an author respected themselves enough, they should always be striving to learn and to improve. This means they should learn how to properly exposit information. Yes. God, oh my goodness, another rant. Bro, you have to stop. I'm sorry, okay? I'm passionate about a lot of things. This one is one of them. Whenever I am passionate about stuff, I will be ranting. So, that is how you can tell if I'm passionate about something. Now, let's talk about my particular, gripes with the fantasy genre. But I will also talk about the stuff that I love. First of all, because this book has mostly been negative, I'm going to talk about the stuff I love. I really love the fact that fantasy gives you the tools required to explore any theme and any subject in depth. What do I mean by this? Let's take our world and let's say you want to explore a particular theme concerning, let's say, prejudice and racism, right? You are trapped in our world. There is plenty of racism going around. Number one, but number two, you can construct a world where you can explore racism and you can construct it such that it provides you enough material to go and explore it. Number three, what will end up happening is that you can explore the subject of, prejudice and racism without the baggage attached, without the baggage of our world attached. Because oftentimes in our world, people take tribes, people take sides, and they will oftentimes not open their mind to different ideas. But if you can put it in the form of a story, in other words, a fantastical story, a fantasy story, you end up communicating a proper idea to someone else who, if you had spoken in different terms, would have disagreed with you. So this is one of the powers, one of the positives I think that the fantasy genre has, which is it enables us to explore really touchy subjects, really touchy subject matter, and do it such that everyone does not grab pitchforks and swords and, basically everyone is not immediately triggered. And everyone is open to having a conversation about the topic. And this can be really amazing. Number two, another thing I love about fantasy is the fact that you can always keep the story extremely unpredictable. If there's going to be a spy thriller story, let's say, James Bond is going to go on another adventure, chasing the bad guy or the bad girl, what ends up happening is that there are a lot of predictions this story has. But because the fact that, fantasy enables you to carry it to your own worlds, to carry it to your own situation, you can write a situation that makes perfect sense, that is completely original. And number two, that is also, because of those two things, unpredictable. Number three, let's talk about what I don't like about the fantasy genre. What I hate that authors seem to be languishing on. In other words, the tropes that I hate about the fantasy genre. Number one, it relates to the first positive thing I have had about the fantasy genre. I love the fact that fantasy lets you create your own worlds. This means I expect you to use this to explore these topics and to build worlds that enables you to have complex characters and to have really nice dynamics occurring between your characters. Ton of the authors I have seen seem to be really building worlds and building tribes and building religions just for the sake of building religions, just for the sake of having a large world. When your goal to world build is to have quantity in your world with no purpose for that quantity, you end up running into a problem of just, there is a people right there and they have a religion, they have a god, they have something about them, and we are never going to explore that. So many religions in fantasy can provide writers a lot of tools to explore many different complex social, topics. Does that happen often? No. What ends up happening is that you end up having 1,000 different religions and 1,000 different tribes and 1,000 different species, but none of the depth, none of the exploration. And if there is a character from a certain religion or a certain tribe that behave in a certain way, none of the complexity is explored. None of the things that it will lead to is explored. What ends up happening is just empty running around plot. Let's talk about the second positive, which is the fact that you can create a story that is really unpredictable, original, and logical. This means we end up running into the issue of fantasy having too many journeys and too many predictable story events and cliches that happen and have been rehashed over and over. You have a genre that enables you to have limitless potential and limitless tools, and all you end up doing is the same shit everyone else has done for over 100 years. Like, you have to ask yourself the question, are you insulting yourself or are you not insulting yourself? Because as a writer, you have to take advantage of the fact that fantasy enables you to create so many amazing things and so many diverse things. And by the way, I want to emphasize there is nothing wrong with having cliches. It all comes down to the execution. But the issue I am having here is the same execution of the same cliche redone and rewritten by so many different authors. That is the thesis of the two things I love about the fantasy genre. And also because I love these two things, I end up seeing so many times those two things done poorly, done in a bad way. Okay, so yeah, those are the two things I love about the fantasy genre, and those are also, the two things I end up hating about fantasy. So yes, thank you for watching. This has been the video. I hope this was not just a huge rant. So God bless you for watching. If you reached so far, you are awesome. You can click the subscribe button. It will not cost you much. If you enjoyed the video, you can come back in 2 days time. I always release videos like this every 2 days. Thank you and bye bye.